Hello everybody, Jonathan Pulley here with West Coast Weather. Today is June 1st and we have a lot to talk about, which is kind of weird to say on a forecast video in June. Right now we're looking at the current satellite imagery for this morning on Friday, June 1st. This is California, Washington, and Oregon over here, British Columbia up here, Hawaii is way down here. You can see that there's a huge expanse of cloud that's flowing all the way from Southeast Asia over here. This is a huge atmospheric river that's going to be slamming into the Pacific Northwest as we go through the next few days. It's going to be a very unusual rain event, and it's going to bring some historical rainfall for this time of the year, with some of the area rivers reaching their highest peak ever recorded during this part of June and late May. So definitely a very serious weather system for this time of the year. There's also going to be some gusty winds on the coast and parts of the interior of Washington State and southwest British Columbia. Most of California should be off the hook with this system, but parts of Northern California, especially the mountain locations, will get clipped by the southern periphery of this atmospheric river. And then as we go through mid to late next week, so basically Wednesday to Friday and weekend time frame, a large ridge of high pressure is going to build over the western U.S. This is likely to bring a heat wave to much of the desert Southwest, including California, Oregon, and potentially Washington and British Columbia as well. There's still some mild disagreement on exactly how warm and how large this ridge of high pressure is going to get, but some sort of major warm up is likely, with California likely getting well over 100 degrees in parts of the Central Valley area from Sacramento down to the just before this coastal mountains down in Los Angeles, and then parts of Death Valley are likely to get probably up towards 110 degrees. So definitely a lot to talk about here. So without further ado, let's get right into the forecast video. Now we're looking at the general ridge and trough positions on the European model. This is the wide view of the North Pacific Ocean. Here's Washington, Oregon, California, and British Columbia over here. Here's Hawaii down here. Japan is all the way over here with Alaska and Russia up here. You can see this huge train of weather makers. These are troughs of low pressure way up in the upper atmosphere. And these blue areas, these troughs, are what generate our storm systems and precipitation. And then these ridges generally bring us our calmer and warmer weather. So as we play this through, as we go through later this weekend, we can see this initial little weak trough that brings some light showers to parts of southwest British Columbia and western Washington, but it really not bringing too much in the way of some active weather. But as we go through later on Sunday, this the first wave of the atmospheric river, and likely the strongest wave of the atmospheric river, will move in as this deep trough and associated low pressure system dive right in the southwest British Columbia and Washington State, and then move through. This will bring some gusty winds to parts of the coastline as well, and lots of rain, and plenty of mountain rain as well, and some river flooding as well. A very unusual system for this time of the year. This is something we would be typically talking about in the winter time frame, but it is happening. And in our next wave of the atmospheric rivers, when this really deep trough, the parent trough, starts opening up over much of the Gulf of Alaska, this is going to leave us on this Washington, Oregon, on this gradient between this ridge of high pressure down over California, and then between this trough of low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska. And basically this is flinging all that moisture from the Asia continent all the way into the Pacific Northwest, bringing that subtropical moisture. Some of this can be linked down to Hawaii, but this is mostly not a typical Pineapple Express atmospheric river. But you can see that this trough starts dying down and this ridge starts building in as we go through the Wednesday, Thursday timeframe. Most of the rain should end by Tuesday night, and you can see why I was mentioning earlier that California is going to be mostly protected, because this ridge of high pressure is going to kind of help dive all that rain to the farther north. And as we play this through, you can see that ridge of high pressure really building in. This is definitely a heat wave scenario on the European model. The GFS is kind of weaker and pushed this ridge a little farther east, with more troughing over the southern Gulf of Alaska, but a lot of the other models also show this solution here on the European model. So there's a good chance we'll get pretty big heat wave with temperatures over 90 degrees possible for eastern Washington and Oregon, and we'll talk about that later. Now, taking a little closer look at things, here's Hawaii, here's British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, California. This is the precipitable water, basically how much moisture. It's a measurement of moisture in the atmosphere, and helps us to see where the atmospheric rivers are and where the most precipitation is going to be. As we go through Sunday, you can see this huge plume of moisture just dive right in. This is basically an anomaly, so basically how much moisture there is compared to normal, and this thing is getting up towards over 4 sigma, which is a very extreme. So it's showing how excessive this moisture is compared to this time of the year on average. And this kind of plows into the Oregon and Washington area. This also shows a lot of precipitable water for parts of California, but most of this precipitation is going to be associated near the low pressure system that's right up here. So most of this precipitation is going to be up in British Columbia, Oregon, and Washington. And as we play this through on Monday and the Tuesday, the second wave comes in. This likely won't be as strong, as you can see that there's not as much moisture working with this, but this is going to set up a stronger south to north pressure gradient over Washington and southwest British Columbia. This is going to lead to some pretty gusty southerly and southeasterly winds over parts of these locations, which we'll look at here in a moment. Now looking at the this is a look at the atmospheric river forecast, and you can see on the GFS and the European model, it's showing parts of Oregon getting up to category 4 atmospheric river level. That is a strong atmospheric river. There's not as much moisture content as some of those other atmospheric rivers during the middle of the winter time, but it's going to be lasting up towards 3 days for parts of Oregon. So that's why Oregon's kind of the bullseye for this, but a lot of the precipitation is going to be happening just to the north of this in Washington state. Now looking at the 6-hour precipitation type in inches, here's the look at the European model. You can see some scattered showers around today through later this evening, but as we go through Sunday morning and in the middle of the day on Sunday, you can clearly see the atmospheric river plowing in the British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest with just an onslaught of tons of rain as we go through the day. Likely much of the lowlands would be getting anywhere from a ½ inch to up to 2 inches of rain, especially on the coast and in those mountain ranges. Some of the mountains may approach 3 to 6 inches of rain within just like a 2 to 3 day period, which is very extreme for this time of the year. Some places may be getting an entire month, June's worth of rain in just 3 days. That just kind of puts into perspective how much rain we're going to be getting for this time of the year. And you can see that that main part of the atmospheric river kind of calms down, but you can see that there's still some activity lingering over western Washington, and there's going to be a convergence zone that likely sets up over Island County from Skagit down to Snohomish County, may start clipping on the King County as well, but there's going to be some gusty winds behind that convergence zone later on. This is Monday morning, by the way, and most models have this as a westerly surge come down the stray one to Fuca. This will bring some gusty winds to the San Juans, Whidbey Island, Port Angeles, and Port Townsend areas as we go through midday from the morning on Monday through midday in the parts of the afternoon. But as we play this through, you can see the next wave arrive on Tuesday, not as strong as you can see as that really strong low around 989 millibars dives into the western British Columbia up there. But there's also, this is going to bring a cold front through the area, and you can kind of see that pressure gradient that sets up over Washington, resulting in some gusty winds, which we'll look at closer here in a little bit. Now looking at the lightning flash density on the European model, there's not going to be much lightning with this system, but I wanted to note on Tuesday as that convergence zone sets up over western Washington, you can see over Island County and parts of Skagit and Snohomish counties, you can see the lightning is starting to show up a bit on the European model, which is showing that there's a bit with how much convergence there's going to be as that westerly surge meets these southerly winds that are coming up the Puget Sound. There's going to be some chance of enough instability for a couple rumbles of thunder during the day on Monday, but most of that kicks out. But as that heat wave starts setting up over California and much of the Pacific Northwest later next week, this is around Thursday to Friday, we're probably going to be getting some daily thunderstorm action over parts of the Sierra Nevadas, the coastal mountain ranges near Los Angeles, and parts of Northern California and Southern Oregon, as some monsoon moisture kind of starts flowing up as that warm air pushes north. That allows some of the moisture from those warmer ocean areas down there near the Baja California, also down near the Gulf of Mexico, allows that to get pulled up. And you can see that as it kind of just fluctuates every day and making its way all the way up the parts of Oregon as well, central Oregon. Some of this is showing up all the way in British Columbia, but it's really too far out to say how far north this monsoonal moisture makes its way north. Now looking at really close things on the Pacific Northwest, here's western Idaho over here, here's Washington, here's Oregon, here's Northern California, here's Southwest British Columbia, Vancouver Island. This is 10-meter wind gusts in miles per hour. You can see generally light winds today with that system that's hardly even brings some rain showers, but you can see on Sunday, you can really see these gusty winds picking up over western Washington, Oregon, especially the coastlines. Also up towards Whidbey Island, where some gusts generally around 20 to 35 miles per hour is expected. Seattle will also get gusty, especially in the later in the evening on Sunday as the pressure gradient starts setting up kind of like southwest, the northeast. And then on Monday morning, here's that westerly surge I was talking about. This morning's European will actually have some gusts approaching over 50 miles per hour along the western parts of Whidbey Island, Lopez Island, the San Juans, up towards down towards Port Townsend as well. It's going to be a pretty quick hit, and will probably be done by around noon. But some of these gusty winds may continue for parts of the Island County area and or along the Strait one if you get through the afternoon. But you can see another increase in wind for the Puget Sound as we go through Monday morning into the afternoon, with some gusts approaching 40 miles per hour near the Bremerton area. So the Puget Sound is going to get pretty gusty, maybe some isolated tree branch issues, maybe a few widely scattered power outages as the trees are fully leafed out now, as we're going in now in meteorological summer now. But then as we go through Tuesday, look at this cold front that starts sliding south. This is probably going to be some of the strongest winds all the way from Whidbey Island all the way up towards Vancouver, BC, with gusts well over 40 miles per hour, approaching 45 miles per hour. So definitely going to be pretty windy on Tuesday, with potentially another westerly wind event later on Tuesday afternoon and evening, but mainly just gusts up to 30 with those westerly winds in the afternoon. Now looking at the NAM3 cam, this is composite reflectivity, so basically what the model thinks the radar is going to look like during this time frame. And you can see some scattered showers, widely scattered showers over parts of western Washington, maybe even a little bit in Oregon as well, but really not dropping that much other than some sprinkles. And so we dry up, but then watch. You can clearly see the next system pushing in as we go through before dawn on Sunday morning. And you can just see this really lasts on. You can see some rain shadowing effects. If I go back here around the just west of the Olympic Mountains, you can see parts of Whidbey Island getting that rain shadowing. So basically anywhere from like about Cootville down to like Freeland on Whidbey Island, from Port Townsend down to Bremerton is going to be the main area. A lot of people move in the retirement down near Squim, which is right about here at the right here, and that's because they have very dry weather compared to the rest of the region. As a lot of these systems, the way they orientate themselves, it causes the air to descend the Olympic Mountains, and that air as it descends loses all of its moisture, so it dries out the air mass just to the lee of these mountains. So that causes some very nice weather there, while other places may be getting a ton of rain. So very interesting local climates. And you can see that we kind of got a break around the Sunday afternoon, but you can see another round quickly comes in with some showery and like thunderstorm action as we go through overnight Sunday and the Monday morning. There's going to be some isolated thunderstorm potential, and that's what's going to cause this convergence. And you can kind of see it it kind of pushes. You can see how it gets like bowed out right here. That's because these westerly winds are punching into this these rain showers, causing that convergence, and it turns into this like little bow shaped. And this is a classic characteristic of some of these more powerful convergence zones, that the wind will quickly shift, also bring some intense rainfall and potentially some isolated rumbles of thunder. Thunder is usually kind of uncommon in these, but as the European model was showing, there is some chance with this convergence zone. But you can see it kind of turns to isolated showers as we go through Monday afternoon before the next wave on Sunday starts moving in. The NAM only goes out for 60 hours, so we can't look at that all the way. Now looking at this is the total precipitation inches on the NAM3 cam over the entire 60-hour period ending on Tuesday morning. There's going to be more rain lasting all the way through Tuesday evening as well. So You can see, look at down here, this is the max rainfall on this entire map, and it's getting up over 13 inches of rainfall in parts. That's probably likely on one of the Cascade volcanoes, maybe Mount Adams or Mount Rainier. But the NAM kind of tends to overdo some of these rainfalls, but you can just see how extreme some of these rainfall amounts are going to be in the mountains, with totals approaching over 6 inches in some of the Olympic Mountains, the coastal mountain ranges along the Willamette Valley in Oregon, parts of Southwest British Columbia, Vancouver Island, the North Cascades. The lowlands will generally get from anywhere from a half inch to maybe an inch and a half of rain. The lowlands out on the coast will likely get up towards 2 inches of rainfall. And you can kind of see that rain shadowing effect from basically Port Angeles all the way down to just north of Bremerton. And you can kind of see where some places aren't even going to get over a half an inch of rainfall. So pretty drastic changes as you go towards some of those drier locations in the rain shadow. Now looking at the composite reflectivity in that HRRR is showing very similar to what the NAM is showing, with lots of rainfalls. Maybe it's showing a lot more rain shadowing on Sunday afternoon than the NAM was showing, but sometimes the HRRR can underdo this. But if the rain showing does tend to be a little stronger than forecasted, then maybe all of Whidbey Island's gonna get a couple hours of no rain before it starts coming back in later Sunday night into Monday. And then the HRRR also shows that convergence zone. It actually shows the most powerful part of the convergence zone arriving on Whidbey Island at about 6 a.m. on Monday. Don't take that verbatim, because usually it'll shift within a couple hours. It could be 6 a.m. It could be 8 a.m. But there's going to be a convergence zone that shows up somewhere around that time frame, and there's going to be some gusty winds, heavy rainfall, and maybe some isolated thunder with that. Now, like at the 10-meter wind gusts on the NAM 3 km, you can see as we go through on Sunday, you can see gusts approaching over 50 on the NAM actually for parts of the Oregon coastline. As that front kind of orientates itself north to south along the coastline, this causes a little bit of an increase in wind right along the coastline as it rides up that coast, so that it kind of, the topography of the coastline kind of enhances those wind speeds. We see that a lot during the summertime, a little less common during this time of the year as we don't get as many frontal systems like this. But you can see some gusty winds approaching over 35 miles per hour for parts of Whidbey and San Juan Islands, and all the way up towards Bellingham possible as well. The Willamette Valley is going to get pretty gusty as well. There's some gusts approaching 40 miles per hour down there. Also gusty in the Cascades, with some of those higher peaks approaching 50 to 60 miles per hour. But hopefully most people aren't all the way up there during the height of this event. But then as it's going to be remaining pretty gusty, breezy to gusty as we go through later on Sunday night into Monday. But then as we go through Monday, you can see that westerly surge on the NAM. It's a really large westerly surge of wind down the Strait One to Fuca on the NAM. Over the Strait One to Fuca, you can see, look at that, gusts up towards 50 miles per hour. The European model was also showing that. You can see it's almost reaching Bellingham, which I don't think is really going to happen. A lot of times these westerly surges stay confined to these water pathways around Whidbey Island and just south of the San Juans, and don't typically make it that far north, but they can occasionally happen, especially if the pressure gradient's a little more southwest than northeast, and it'll push some of those winds up towards Bellingham. So that's going to be interesting to see as we go. And I'll be probably talking about this a lot on my Twitter/X page, which I will link down in the comments below if anybody wants to go check out that page there. I post some periodic updates for the weather down there and a interesting weather phenomenon. So make sure to go check that out. But then as we go through later Monday afternoon, those westerly winds start coming down. But then you can see this another huge wall of wind starting to approach. We're at the max 60 hours on the NAM 3 camp, so we can't go any farther than this, but you can already see potential for some 50 mile per hour wind gusts on the coastlines, and some of that will probably reach parts of the northwest interior as well, and parts of the Strait of Georgia on Tuesday. So pretty windy on Tuesday expected. Now look at the 10-meter wind gusts on the HRRR model. You can see as we go through the day on Sunday, gusty winds again, also showing 50 plus mile per hour wind gusts on the Oregon coastline. So definitely probably not going to be the best beach day down there, with some gusts getting over 40 miles per hour for parts of the Puget Sound as well on the HRRR. far, which that would definitely cause some tree branch issues and some power outage problems as well, with gusts over 40 miles per hour around the Everett and Lake Stevens area and the Marysville area. That starts causing some issues around there, and some of that could get into the Seattle metro area as well. Then you can see the westerly surge on the HRRR kind of flowing down the straight one. If you could, it's not as strong the HRRR, which to be expected. These are more localized weather features, so models kind of have a hard time getting the exact positioning and strength of the winds. So now looking at the daily max 2-meter temperature, these are the high temperatures for the entire day on the national blended model. So this is the average of a bunch of the main models to get kind of a better look at the temperatures. And because it's a large average, some of these temperatures will likely be a little higher than what this model is showing, but this gives a good idea of what we should expect. So on Sunday, as the atmospheric river is causing lots of clouds, temperatures will likely have a hard time getting up towards 60 for much of Western Washington. As there's some slightly drier weather out east, some of the high temperatures will likely get well into the 70s for parts of the Columbia Basin in eastern Washington and Oregon. Also, the Willamette Valley getting into the low to middle 60s, and the coastline in the middle to upper 50s. On Monday, it's going to be very similar. On Tuesday, also very similar, maybe a little warmer on Tuesday, as the main atmospheric river is starting to move out of the area, with plenty of temperatures getting into the low 60s for western Washington, southwest British Columbia. These temperatures are in Fahrenheit, by the way, as well. If this was in Celsius, we would probably want to get underground, because that would be way too hot. But thankfully that's not the case. On Wednesday and Thursday, though, that ridge of high pressure is going to start influencing the area, and you can see temperatures even out west starting to approach 70 degrees. Willamette Valley getting into the middle 70s potentially on Wednesday. These temperatures will likely be maybe a bit warmer than what this model is saying, but this is a good idea, as I was saying. Maybe up to some temperatures up into the 80s for parts of the Columbia Basin, some of those lower areas that get more sunshine out there. Look at some of the valleys down in southern Oregon and northern California starting to approach 80 to 90 degrees. So definitely getting very warm down there. On Thursday, look at this, temperatures approaching 90 degrees in the Columbia Basin, temperatures getting to the low to middle 70s, and up into the 80s for the Willamette Valley and the Portland metro area. You can see if you want cooler temperatures, go down to any of the water areas, and you'll likely feel some localized cooler temperatures, as those water temperatures are still very chilly out there, which is very normal. And you can see on Friday, even warmer, with Seattle starting to approach 80 degrees. Definitely a pretty good heat wave on this model. And this is an average of a bunch of other models. So these are these temperatures are likely too low. You can see the Columbia Basin approaching the mid 90s, with Portland approaching the upper 80s as well. So lots of those valley locations in eastern Oregon also getting up towards 90 degrees, and then maybe cooling off as that ridge builds moves east. But this is way far out there, and we'll continue to look at that as we go. Now looking at California, this is where the true heat wave is definitely going to be happening. You can see generally temperatures in the 80s and 90s, which is for the next couple of days as the atmospheric river happens up north. This is pretty typical for this time of the year. You can see the Death Valley approaching 114 degrees. So definitely that's why it's called Death Valley, because nothing's living out there. But on Tuesday and Wednesday, look at these. The high temperatures getting well into the hundreds for parts of the Central Valley. So you can see Death Valley getting over 115 degrees, over 120 degrees in Death Valley on the national blended models for Wednesday. Down in Death Valley, you can see the Central Valley all the way up near Redding getting over 105 degrees. You can see parts of Arizona up near Phoenix getting well over 100 degrees as well, with plenty of valleys getting over 110 degrees. You can see on Thursday very similar temperatures, with almost approaching 122 degrees in Death Valley. Those are some crazy temperatures down there, but you can see just multiple days of over 100 degrees potentially for parts of California with this heat wave next week. Now looking at the total precipitation inches over this entire multi-day atmospheric river, you can see precipitation amounts approaching 3 to 6 inches for parts of the mountains. You can see the lowlands generally getting anywhere from a half inch to a couple inches of rainfall, especially on the coastline. You can see the cutoff around the Oregon and California border, with some of the northern California coastal mountain ranges maybe getting an inch or two of rain in some of those higher peaks. But wow, quite quite the look for early June. Now looking at some nice graphics from the National Weather Service. This is from the National Weather Service of Spokane, Washington. They always have great graphics out there. Very wet Sunday through Monday, as we were looking at. Even out east, they're going to be getting around 1/2 inch to 1 inch of rain in Spokane. Moses Lake getting up towards 1/4 of an inch, potentially. Ritzville up to 1/2 inch, potentially. An unusual June atmospheric river will bring moderate, locally heavy rainfall across the inland northwest Sunday and the Monday. Heaviest rainfall will occur overnight Sunday and the Monday morning for this out east locations. Farther out west, most of the heavy rain is going to be during the day on Sunday and the Sunday evening. 1 to 2 inches of rainfall expected for the Cascades and mountains of the Idaho Panhandle. Most of the rain will be beneficial, however, be on the lookout for increased risk for rock slides, rises on small creeks and streams, ponding, and poor drainage areas. So keep an eye on those things. There's also going to be some gusty winds and thunderstorm potential out east on Monday afternoon. Thunderstorms will occur inside the dotted location. So this is basically eastern Washington, basically from Spokane down to Lewiston and Winchester, Idaho. This will extend east into Montana as well. Secure loose objects, rough water on area lakes. So just keep an eye out on that. Here's a slightly zoomed out graphic from the incoming rain. This is from the National Weather Service of Portland. An atmospheric river will bring substantial rainfall across the region early next week. Heaviest rain likely Sunday and Monday. Less than 10% chance that rain will lead to flooding or debris flows. So it's not that much of a chance for some flooding down there and debris flows, as we've had a pretty extended dry period, which is expected during the month of May as we start lowering the amount of rainfall we typically get. But the interior valleys will likely get 1 to 2 inches of rain, with the coast and mountains approaching 1.5 to 3 inches of rainfall, locally higher amounts possible. Now going down to California, they have a significant heat wave expected, as we were looking, with highs around 95 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe some localized valley locations getting up towards 110 degrees. Lows in the 60s, the middle 70s. This is from Tuesday through Thursday, but this heat will likely last past Thursday. Potential for major heat risk of heat stress or illness to people, especially those who work outdoors. Animal. Consider testing your AC. Continue to follow the forecast for the latest updates, and use caution around area waterways, which are still running fast and are cold due to the snow melt. So even though it's going to be really hot outside, the water temperatures are going to be very cold, and that can cause people get shocked when they enter the very cold water, and that can sometimes be pretty dangerous. So make sure that always have your life jackets if going out on the water. Major heat risk for much of the Central Valley. I wouldn't be surprised if some of this gets upgraded to extreme if the temperatures do tend to get up a little bit, as this is still around 4 to 6 days away for the main heat. This level of heat will affect everybody without effective cooling and/or adequate hydration. Consider canceling outdoor activities during the heat of the day. Stay hydrated and stay in a cool place. And this is talking about that cold and fast water. How cold is too cold? Below 77 degrees, breathing begins to be affected. From 70 degrees to 60 degrees, breathing is difficult to control or hold. From 60 to 50 degrees, breath cannot be regained after losing it, and muscle control is lost after a few minutes. So even strong swimmers can quickly lose muscle control. So be very careful out there. If you choose to enter the water on a boat or otherwise, wear a life jacket, avoid alcohol, and keep a close eye on kids. Now look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. This is from the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center. And you can see obviously there's going to be a big above average temperature signal for the Pacific Northwest and the Western US entirely. And also that you can see the east is going to get all that nice cooler weather, but we've been kind of dealing with that for the past month or so out west. So it's kind of our turn to have the heat. Now, at 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, they're showing that monsoon moisture potentially over the southwest United States. This is for June 7th and 11th. So this is not accounting for that atmospheric river. So that's why it's showing below average precipitation chances up towards Washington and parts of Oregon and Idaho. But that's not accounting for the atmospheric river. the 14-day temperature, this is for the middle of June, June 9th through the 15th. This is just kind of what they think is generally going to happen. Above average temperatures, which if that ridge of high pressure remains around that region, that's to be expected. But you can also see generally around near normal to above average precipitation for much of the west coast. And that's kind of that's from some of that monsoonal moisture that they're expecting to get a little further north. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on that for some thunderstorm potential in the interior Pacific Northwest. So still plenty to talk about as we go through early to middle June. Well, that's it for this video, everybody. Very rainy weather expected as we go through tomorrow, Sunday through Tuesday for the Pacific Northwest, including British Columbia. A heat wave expected during the middle, the late half of next week for California in the Southwest United States, before that starts moving up in the Oregon and Washington on Thursday and Friday. So definitely keep an eye out on that. I will likely have another forecast video out next weekend during that heat wave, but I'm pretty sure that heat wave is likely to happen. It's not looking too extreme for parts of Washington, Oregon, but we're gonna have to take gonna keep an eye on that as we go. But I hope everybody's having a wonderful day today. I hope everybody has a great rest of their weekend, and I'll talk to everybody in the next video.